It's April 1st, which means it's time to set our April TBR. For this month, I want to choose around 10 books to read. This month is going to be moving month, so there will be a lot of times that I don't have the option of picking up a physical book. So with about 3 or 4 books, I want to have the option of doing an audiobook either through Spotify or through Audible. With that in mind, I've already picked a few books that I want to get to this month. The first one being The Hotel Nantucket by Elin Hilderbrand. I got this book in my recent haul. I've heard it's the perfect summer read from multiple YouTubers that I watch. This book specifically follows a girl post-breakup and, quote, is seeking a second act. She becomes the general manager of the Hotel Nantucket, and you follow her journey trying to restore the hotel, but also it looks like there's a lot of drama that goes down with the staff and the guests. And our main character is trying to overcome the bad reputation of this hotel due to a tragic fire that happened back in 1922. It sounds like this book is going to be full of drama and juicy secrets, which I feel like will be the perfect thing to listen to on audiobook to keep me entertained and keep me engaged. Next, I have a stack of nonfiction books that I want to try and work through slowly but surely. This first one is a memoir that I've had for a really long time. It's called Girl Wash Your Face by Hollis. I previously tried to pick this up quite a few years back. I think I got maybe 3 chapters in and just got bored. I'm scared that I think this is going to be similar to my review of Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Their Goodreads reviews kind of have similar vibes. So I am a little bit worried that I won't love this, but if that's the case, I'll just DNF it and at least I know that I gave it a shot. This also is on Spotify, so if I just want to throw it on in the background, if I'm cleaning, if I'm driving, if I'm at the gym, it will be really quick and easy because I believe the audiobook time length is only between 6 to 8 hours, which is really quick, especially if you listen at 1.5 speed. Next, I want to continue and hopefully finish the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. Book 2 is called It's Not Summer Without You. I'll be honest, this one I'm not ecstatic about reading because this was a very depressing season. Just about the worst thing happens to the family and you're watching the kids go through this together and try and work through it, but things just continually go wrong. But the main star of the show for me is getting to book 3 so I can figure out what happens in the end. And this book is called We'll Always Have Summer. I'll be honest, the first thing I did when I got this book set in is I opened the last page of book 3 just to see what it said, which I'm sure would make some people scream at the screen right now. But honestly, I've been doing this since I started reading books in like middle school. I get really impatient and need to know what happens. So what I would typically do was read the first chapter to get the premise and understand who the characters are, read the last chapter so I know what happens, and then go back to the second chapter and figure out how we got there. Which is not everybody's preferred way of reading, but hey, if you're impatient like me, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. The next book to add to our list is actually really easy. I've known since I got this set that I want to do a full spoiler vlog of reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. Literally everyone and their moms has read this book except for me, which is why I want to do a full spoiler reading vlog because I just want to be able to talk about it freely and hopefully some other people that have read the book can hop in the comments so we can discuss. I'm not on TikTok, so this book actually hasn't been spoiled for me. I really don't know too much of what happens. I know that it's loosely a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which excites me because Beauty and the Beast was always my favorite Disney princess movie growing up. But I'm not gonna waste time explaining this book because again, everyone's probably already read it and knows the plot. But that takes us to 5 books so far for our TBR. Now, as I mentioned, wanting to set a goal of 10 books, I do want to go ahead and just pick some quicker books that I'm really excited to read, just because I don't know how much time I'm going to have this month. The next book that I'm super excited to read is called The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I've literally only heard amazing things about this book. I know that there's a magical element and I know that it takes place in NYC, both of which are a surefire sign that I'm gonna love this book. And it's also really short. It's only 326 pages. So if I'm into this book, I feel like I could read it in about 2 sittings. Another really short one is going to be When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This book is even shorter. It's 305 pages. It's a contemporary romance. It follows a pop star who's just burned out over the city life and goes to this small town, Rome, Kentucky, and ends up meeting this love interest. It sounds like it's just going to be a sweet, quick, fast romance. Okay, that takes us to 7 books. There's a lot of romance in here, so I do feel like I need to pick another genre to help diversify this stack of books. This is kind of a rogue choice, but this is called The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. I love Brene Brown. I've watched multiple of her TED Talks. She's written multiple self-help books, and whenever I was in therapy, my therapist actually recommended that I read this one. This is probably one of the quickest self-help books I've ever seen. It's only 126 pages. Since this one's so short, it's probably not one that I'm going to binge, but I do want to read a couple chapters throughout the month, and I think within a matter of 1 to 2 weeks, I'll be able to get through this whole book. Okay, we're at 8 books now, and this is kind of where it's getting tough. As of right now, I have 2 nonfiction, 1 self-help, 1 memoir/self-help. I have 2 YA romance, 2 adult romance, 1 adult fantasy, and then 1 literary fiction/romance. I feel like we need another fantasy in the mix here. For something fantasy-wise and maybe something a little bit darker, I either have Threadneedle, which is a cozy fantasy, or I have the Zodiac Academy. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a bit intimidated about the Zodiac Academy, as I've heard that it's a bully romance and there's a slew of trigger warnings to go with it. I've never read anything about a bully romance, so I really don't know how I'm gonna react. I don't do well about reading about abuse, and I do think there's a bit of abuse that goes on between the 2 love interests. It also feels a bit long. It's 429 pages, albeit the font is really big in this book. It probably will go fairly fast for a 430-page book, versus Threadneedle, which is a cozy fantasy that takes place in London. But now looking at this is actually 553 pages, which I just don't know if I'm gonna have time to sign up for. And I don't know if the beginning of summer is really the best time to read a cozy fantasy. So I'm probably gonna put this one back and go with the Zodiac Academy. But I'll be honest, this is probably one of the last ones that I'll look for on my TBR. This will really be, if I have time, I'd love to get this in, but if not, this one could definitely be pushed to a later date. Okay, we've definitely been able to create a bit of space now for my remaining TBR books. I'm hesitant to add book 2 in the ACOTAR series, which would be A Court of Mist and Fury. I know the series is supposed to change my life and I'm going to be obsessed with it, but the length of these books really intimidates me, especially when I know I'm going to have a busy month ahead. But I do know that all the ACOTAR series are on either Spotify or Audible, so maybe I should just bite the bullet, add this one on the list. And even if I can't fully finish this book this month, I know that I'll definitely be getting to this series within the next month or 2. So let's go ahead and organize this TBR a little bit better. To round out the plan for April, I have 2 adult romances. I have 2 YA romances. I have 1 literary fiction with a romance subplot. I have 2 nonfiction, 1 memoir/self-help, 1 solely self-help. Starting the ACOTAR series, which is an adult fantasy. And then 1, I would call this a dark romantasy. This is definitely going to have a huge fantasy element, but I do believe the book heavily focuses on their relationship. So not too bad. I feel like we have a decent amount of range considering I'm heavily a romance reader. A lot of these are going to have romance subplots at least, but it's good not to have just solely romance books. Let me know what your TBR looks like for April and if you have read any of the books that I had planned. But for now, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video.